Hey there, I'm WJTV's Jacob Kittelstad. You know, a map can answer a lot of questions about a state. What's the capital, how big it is, the basic stuff. But take a closer look at any map and you'll find yourself asking a whole new set of questions. Questions like, there's actually a place named Hot Coffee? How did a town in Mississippi get such an unusual name? Come to think of it, there are plenty of towns all across the state that have names you don't see every day. Each one probably has its own interesting story. You know, someone should really do a half-hour special on Mississippi's most unusual town names. Welcome to WJTV's newest half-hour special, Mississippi's Most Unusual Town Names. I'm hitting the road to answer one simple question: what's the story behind the words on the welcome sign? How did places come to be known as D-Lo, Soso, and why not? And while we're at it, we'll find out what these places have to offer besides just the quirky name. Some you may know, while others might come as a surprise. But either way, by the time this trip is done, you'll have a better understanding of these small towns and communities that, while are often overlooked, played a big role in our state's history. So sit back, relax, and buckle up as I head out to explore Mississippi's most unusual town names.
Nothing like some hot coffee when you're on a road trip, or in my case, cold coffee. This place looks like it might be able to help.
Welcome to McDonald's store. Heart of hot coffee. Linda Sanford is the owner.
Everyone knew about hot coffee and the hot coffee area, but through the years, I think it has just kind of evolved into a tourist attraction. We have repeat customers every day. Sometimes I see the same person 2 or 3, 4, 5 times a day. And it's kind of like a store family. This is based on what a community country store used to be. It's a general merchandise store. We sell a lot of sliced luncheon meat and old-fashioned bologna, and people can't get that, you know, just anywhere anymore. So we have a lot of meat customers every day and cheese customers. There you go. I must like it or I would not have been here, about 37 years on my own and 10 years with my parents. So I must like it or I would not have stayed.
But the history of the store goes back even further than Linda's parents. In fact, the property is tied to how hot coffee got its name.
This was back during the early 1800s to mid-1800s, and this was a stopping point. And Mr. Davis and his wife had a little inn, and the travelers would make it to here and stop for the night. The travelers would say, well, let's make it and get a cup of hot coffee. So Mr. Davis cut out a coffee pot and put 2 words on it, hot coffee, and hung it outside his establishment. And the name just stuck. This side I have hats for the men.
Now, McDonald's store sells all sorts of odds and ends, but to carry it all home, you might have to pick up something at a business that's just a short drive down the road.
Mash it down, keep them pushed down tight towards the bottom, makes a sturdier, stronger basket.
Marilyn Deal runs Rogers Basketry. The shop is named after her brother, who's a German Baptist like herself.
This is for a cat or a small dog.
And being a part of the faith, that means she doesn't use electricity, including while creating her huge catalog of woven projects.
1,138, I think is the number. I kind of have something in mind or something that we're using it for. The first one that I kind of just made up on my own was the Katrina, just after the storm Katrina, something we had never been through before. And that, I don't know, it's just round, and I just kind of did what I thought matched the storm. And I made the flat reed like the calm, and then the round reed is like the storm, and then at the eye it was calm again, and then the storm, and then back to the calm. I don't really have to think about it, I don't think. It's more the in-out. I maybe do a little, but I think it's mostly I just don't have to think about anything. You know, it's not strenuous at all. If we move to Mount Olive, that's going to be hard to get used to. Or maybe they will have a time getting used to us, I'm not sure which.
Marilyn says some of her family's already moved away, but at this point, she doesn't want to leave the area. She says the small community is a good fit in most ways.
Yeah, I don't really drink coffee, so that part isn't, but I think it's a unique name. I like hot coffee.
We drink coffee all during the day. That kind of perks us up and keeps us going. But at times it can get a little bit hectic in here. So at times we can have like 15, 20 people in here. Everyone says this is the best ice cream.
Linda says she's also thinking of her eventual departure from hot coffee, at least from working there, but it's not a thought she likes to dwell on.
I hate to think about retiring because I won't get to see everybody every day. And it's a little bit sad. I've spent practically all of my life in hot coffee. I can't believe it.
I depart with a slight caffeine buzz, looking for a way to burn off that extra energy. Can I find a town out there to help me? Well, why not?
When you get this far out into the country, you never know what you're gonna find. Farms, old gas stations, sure. But a full-scale race course? Well, why not?
Come here, boy.
This is Junior. He's part chocolate lab, part grizzly bear.
Hey, boy.
At least that's what his owner Rodney Wing says. He's also the owner of Why Not Motorsports Park, but he calls himself second in command.
He's the boss. He runs the place. He gets tired after a while. He'll sit down somewhere. Oh, look at him.
Rodney's a former race car driver who still hits the track every once in a while. This one, in the Why Not community, has been around since 1965. But when Rodney bought it, it was out of commission.
And I tried to talk a lot of other people into buying it first, but nobody would bite, so I ended up having to do it myself. And it was in ruins, basically, and we brought it back to life. And like I say, this is our 10th season back. Yeah, I've learned a lot, for sure. Lost a lot of hair.
But without an event, the rural community can feel a little abandoned.
It's definitely a ghost town and a lot different, you know. Saturday rolls around, it changes quickly for sure. You know, there's times when we have this place just completely covered up. 50 acres of land here will be just completely covered up with race car rigs and race cars, and these guys come rolling in here with, you know, $500,000 truck and trailers, and you know, each one of the cars cost, you know, upwards of $100,000 in that division. So it's serious sometimes for sure.
Certainly more horsepower on hand than what the original landowners had access to.
I can remember when my daddy and other people would sell timber, and they logged it with mules and horses. This is a cemetery on our property there.
Stanley Shannon is tax collector for Lauderdale County. He helped establish the local archives, which include the history of Why Not. Of course, I'm interested.
When the large timber companies left, there were smaller sawmills came in, and they started cutting the timber, or what timber was left, and it had grown back some. And there's always been speculation as to how it got its name. There was a group together to name it, trying to select a name. And it began to be where why not name it this, why not name it that, and why not name it that. Some person suggested, well, since it's why not this and why not that, why don't we just name it Why Not? And so they all agreed to it. They could go all the way to Mobile.
That's the fun version of the story, but probably not the most accurate. The most plausible reason for Why Not's name is because of migrants from the Carolinas who lived in a town also known as Why Not. Again, not as fun as that storytime version.
And my daddy, the way he told that story was so many people were thankful that they named it Why Not, because the leading name in contention up to that time was Who'd Have Thought It.
That's his favorite pose. Roll over. Yeah, my little girl, she's 6 years old, or 7 years old now, but when she was coming up, when anybody would say why not for any reason, asking a question or whatever on TV, she said, that's where we live, Daddy.
Rodney says the name is great for his marketing. It's memorable and works well in slogans.
I'm usually everywhere. You know, it's real cold or very, very hot or whatever like that. You know, there's your core group's going to be here either way, you know, but we have the big crowds when everything's just right, the fair weather crowd. Rubber burning on the tires and and the fuel, you know, the different types of fuel burning, and it's just something you don't, you never forget.
Off of the dirt and back onto the pavement. I'm hoping the next town doesn't mind if my shoes are kind of dirty. I'll say that they're so-so.
Just a little over 30 miles southeast of Jackson, you'll find Sanatorium, Mississippi, a community named for the Mississippi Tuberculosis Sanatorium, which, until its closing in the 1970s, was the last remaining facility of its kind in the entire U.S. We'll be right back with more of Mississippi's most unusual town names after this.
Having trouble getting anything on the radio. It all just sounds kind of so-so. Wait a second, what's the name of that town?
Soso, Mississippi. Population 408. On its outskirts, a post office where we meet lifelong resident Shanita Horn.
I love living out here. It's peaceful. It's not much to do, but it's enough for most people.
The Soso post office is actually the source of the town's odd name. Mr. Jim Eaton, a traveling postmaster in the 1880s, would unfailingly answer questions about his health or business with a simple response. It's so-so, he'd say. The locals named the post office after that small talk. Eventually, it would move to this spot, which adopted the title. Now, at the center of town sits Royal's Western Store, where I mosey over for a visit.
We still have quite a few farmers around, and they love to wear their overalls.
Rion Wade owns the business.
Children's boots. Oh gosh, all the little cowboys and kids love the little children's boots.
He says it's booming.
Soso is in the middle of the oil field industry, and we get a lot of oil field traffic through for safety wear. So it's well known. I mean, everywhere you go, people want to know if the little store at Soso's still there. This is a picture of Edward Royals, which everybody known him as Stubby. In 1935, this store was established by Mr. Edward Royals. Yeah, he was a little guy, and of course this countertop was down real low so that he could wait on people. But he always loved people. I mean, people would come from everywhere. I always remembers talking to Stubby.
But perhaps Soso's biggest claim to fame came over the airwaves.
I was born in Soso, Mississippi.
Sweet Magnolia Blues, that's kind of our theme song in this town. Yeah.
Folks at Soso, but Lord knows it sure can groove.
What inspires you to write that stuff?
Dick, I don't know. If I knew, I'd write more of them.
From the 1978 album called Southern Tracks and Fantasies, the song, by the celebrated musician Paul Davis, got a good amount of radio play across Mississippi.
And that's Paul, of course.
Art Matthews is a former DJ and record store owner.
Well, I never saw it on the single, and I remember how happy I was when we finally got it on the CD where I could play it on the radio station, because since we'd put it on, the phone would light up. I guess that's probably 1990.
He says he got close with the singer-songwriter toward the end of his life. They met at Davis's studio in Meridian.
I showed out because I never had been anywhere and got pretty drunk and threw up. And Paul come up and said, "He's okay, he's just drunk." So that was the first time I met him. We became good friends. He wrote soulful ballads, I guess you'd call them, or soulful blues, or I still just say it's just good music.
Davis's family says the singer's father preached for a time at a Methodist church in Soso.
I write off of feelings. When I quit trying to write hit songs years ago and started writing with feeling, that's when I started being successful.
So. It's just a good song. I don't know. Paul had a great sense of humor. And I've never saw him do anything but drink coffee and smoke cigarettes and take an aspirin. You know, he had the real long hair, and everybody assumed that he was, you know, a doper, but he was nothing like that. Nothing like me. Face it, he was country. I mean, he was just a country boy. He described it as kind of a laid-back town, you know, where not much activity went on, and it's still that way today. It's kind of a slow town to live in.
Well, basically just so-so, I guess.
Soso, Mississippi, sweet Magnolia Blue.
Heading out of town, downhill this time. Maybe it's time to visit a low point in the road.
If you're looking for a place with a name that's out of this world, you'll find it in the Mississippi Delta. The community of Mhoon Landing was named for African-American settler Faber Mhoon, who each night would place a lantern in a lighthouse for ships passing by on the Mississippi River. More of Mississippi's most unusual town names is coming up.
All this time on the road really makes me want to stretch out my legs. A nice long walk sounds really good right now. Delo, Mississippi. That looks like just as good a place as any.
The small size of the town matches the brevity of its name. Delo, just 3 letters, not counting the apostrophe, but people around here say the spot has a much longer history. We'll meet one of those people, John Henry Berry.
I'm the mayor of Delo, Mississippi. I was told by some of the elders that we had the first electricity in the state of Mississippi, which I thought was amazing. To me, it's like a modern-day Mayberry. I mean, if you think about it, everybody around here knows everybody. We all hang out on back porches and do things together. We have an unusual big Christmas parade. This right here is the old post office from Delo, Mississippi. For our town, and this was featured in the Time Life magazine. Matter of fact, the photo that we were looking at in the Time Life magazine was taken right here in this doorway.
Perhaps Delo's biggest claim to fame is this feature, published nationally during World War II.
As the young men of Delo have gone to fight, I'm going to say around 75 or 80% of our men and women went to battle and left this town like a ghost town. And Time Life magazine in 1942 featured Delo in their magazine in June of that year.
But now,
this is our community house. This is a mark for World War II veterans.
The town has only one surviving World War II veteran left.
Joe Parker. And the ones with the stars there are the ones that were killed in the service. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, I was hitchhiking back to school, and they interrupted the radio program and announced that we had been bombed by the Japanese. Of course, I was young and gung-ho. I wanted to go right then. But there was an older fellow with me going back. He was a graduate student, and he says, Joey, he says, let's go back and finish this semester anyway. He says, we'll get plenty of fighting before this is over with.
Joe Parker says his service took him to the Philippines in 1943. He was just 18 years old. Now, he's 91, retired, but still marching in time.
I'm out of the athletics now. I walk. That's my main exercise now.
He was up to like, I think 10 miles, and now I think he's down to 5. I don't even know if I can do 5. I don't even know if you can do 5.
I was walking 4 miles a day. I'm down to about 3 now, 2.5 or 3. When I set out to my goal, I said, I think I'll see if I can't walk the distance of around the world, 25,000 miles. Well, I made that a couple of years ago, and I don't keep up with it anymore.
He walks me over to the Strong River, one of his favorite routes. And that river is the actual origin of the town's name. But before I tell you why, here's the tall tale version.
The story of the railroaders coming through and said it's the dangest, lowest place they'd ever seen. The post office, I was told that at first they spelt it D-A-M-N-L-O-W. And then they told them, you are not putting that on the post office, so they abbreviated it to Delo.
Historians like Jim Woodrick have different information.
According to some researchers at the University of Southern Mississippi, the name actually comes from a word that was a corruption of a French map that identified the confluence of the Strong River and a creek nearby, and the name meant bitter creek or bad water, so that's actually where the name came from. Perhaps not a very nice thing, but it just means that it was bitter water.
Mr. Parker says he's lucky to be alive today. The war could have got him, or the cancer.
Yeah, I have problems. I'm a lung cancer survivor.
Or even old age. Reasons why most of his childhood friends are now gone.
Yeah, I do miss them. You know, and things come up that you would like to tell them, and of course they're not there anymore. That's a funny thing. When you get old, you don't feel old. You know you're old, but you really don't feel old. If you find reasons not to go with different excuses, you'll just find more and more, till eventually, you just won't be doing anything.
Back on track and back on the road, we're on our final leg of this trip across the state.
There's a community in Sharkey County with a name unlike any other. It's called Panther Burn, but it's not the only Mississippi name with bite. Right in our backyard, you'll find Copiah County, which means calling panther in Choctaw. We'll be right back with more of Mississippi's most unusual town names.
This looks like the end of the road for Mississippi's most unusual town names. I hope you learned something, but more importantly, I hope you had some fun. Maybe we'll take a trip like this again someday, but next time, you're paying for some of the gas. Sound good? Didn't think so. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there on the roads, and I'll see you back at WJTV.